I don't think this is like a conspiracy. This is companies trying to make money.
Yeah.
And to do that, they make foods that are delicious and cheap and convenient.
Mm-hmm.
But many times they're less healthful foods with clever marketing that make them appear better for us.
Mm-hmm.
Food companies themselves invest a ton of money into shaping our behaviors. And those especially at risk are young people.
Hello and welcome back to the How To Fitness podcast with me, Michael Ujoa.
And me, Kate Lyman.
And today we are back with a deep dive from the one, the only, Kate Lyman. How are you, Kate?
I'm fine.
You sure?
You asked that earlier and I was like,
Yeah.
No, I'm doing well. It's Monday morning. We had an eventful weekend. Oh, which, by the way, I wanted to ask you how Jude's football is going. I saw that Jude started football. Is that right?
Yeah, my son started a little football group. It's with the local football club. They've been a football club since 1890 something. They've been a club for a long time.
That's so cool.
Yeah, he loves it. It's chaos. It's a load of 2 to 3 or 2 to 4 year olds just running around a hall chasing after footballs. I love it. He loves it as well.
It's adorable.
Yeah. The guy gives instructions of what they should do, and some of them kind of vaguely follow it, but no, he just runs around with a football, sometimes picks it up and just throws it at stuff. It's just, yeah, really good fun.
That's right. That's very cute. Let me tell you what one thing we did this weekend that was very cute. Milo's been in swim class. I'm putting this in air quotes because they don't actually teach them to swim. It's like comfort in the water.
Yeah, nice.
Water play.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's been in these swim classes since he was like 3 months old. So we've been there for a long time. And they have something called Noche de Luciérnagas, or Firefly Night, lightning bug night. Mm-hmm. And so on Saturday night, they opened the pool and you got to go at night and they turn all the lights down and you like play with glow toys and do all this like night water stuff. It was very cute.
That's very cool. I want that for adults. Why can't we have like nighttime pool sessions like that? Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. It was fun. And you know, there's like, one parent got to be in the water, so I went in the water with him, and the other parents, like, everyone's out there with their phones and taking photos and stuff, and it was like such an event, but it was very cute. I enjoyed it.
That is awesome. We take Jude swimming as well. It's just really cool. It's a really good thing to do, isn't it? He's not afraid of the water at all now, which is great. He just loves being in it. It's really chill. I also just want to highlight, so before we started recording this, I hadn't had my food, but it arrived via Deliveroo, like a food service, and I scoffed down my food so fast, and Kate, you had to watch me eat my lunch really quickly.
I watched him eat so fast and told him he's definitely going to have heartburn. So
yeah,
if midway through the heartburn stops, I want you to report.
It was also a very spicy meal, so I'm definitely not going to feel good in about 20, 30 minutes time. So if something weird happens halfway through the episode, just ignore me and listen to Kate. It's probably the best thing to do.
Michael just runs off. Today, what we're talking about is something that I've been really, really interested. I've been waiting to do this episode because it's a topic that really interests me, how food marketing shapes our eating behaviors. We've talked a little bit about, I think this is season 1, we talked about hyperpalatable foods and how like the makeup of foods influence how we eat, overeating, or what we eat. But I want to talk about the marketing today. So first, Michael, talk me through what a trip to the grocery store looks like for you, as in like, do you always get the same thing? Do you try new things? Do you get overwhelmed?
I always make sure I don't go hungry, because then I know that it's a recipe for disaster, because I will buy everything that looks delicious. So I know that I probably become more susceptible to marketing when I'm hungry. So yeah, I usually stick to the same things, but I do occasionally quite mixing up, and if something looks quite fun and different, I'll probably give it a go. Like I've recently started trying these new yogurts. It's very rare you get good vegan protein yogurts. They've started doing some that look quite good, so I've been trying those out and they're great. So I think I'm a bit of a sucker for a bit of marketing, unfortunately.
I feel like we're a rare case because since moving to Mexico, we don't really grocery shop much more. We're like more market people, which I love. Mm-hmm. But about once a month we go to the grocery store. And I'm such a sucker. Like they'll have a new product, whether it's an import from a different country or like a new Mexican product. If the branding looks good, if it's real pretty, I'm like, oh, I should definitely try that.
Yeah.
Or I know this of myself, if it's healthified, the thing you were just eating, like a grain bowl, if there's a new grain mix or something, I love that stuff. I love it for my lunches and stuff. We went to the grocery store yesterday, which was nice while I was writing this episode because I was like, oh.
Hyper aware. Yeah.
Yes, hyper aware. But I still bought this new ancient grain mix thing because I was like, oh, that's going to be great for my lunch prep for this week. I am that sucker. And I know it.
Yeah, I like it. I don't know if it's that good in Mexico. It might be, it might not be, where the vegan or plant-based sections now are just getting better and better. So rather than it just being a tiny little section of a supermarket, it's now an aisle. And I walk down that and I'm just such a sucker. Because I think I couldn't get a lot of these products for so long, because I can't eat eggs or dairy. I'm now just like, oh, this looks great. Let's buy it. Even though it could be complete nonsense, but I'm getting it. I'm trying it out.
I'm kind of that way about protein bars because I'm not saying protein bars don't exist here. They do, but you have to go to like GNC and they're double, triple price because they're imports. But Mexican protein bars, there's like the first company making Mexican protein bars. And the first time I saw it, I was like, yo, yeah, I need to try that.
Are they good?
Like, no, not at all. They're very bad.
That's a
They're
shame.
very bad. It kind of feels like 10 years ago when people were starting to make protein bars. Yeah, it's not.
I think protein bars are still, even now, they're so hit or miss. I feel like they're either delicious.
But you're vegan, so you have fewer options because Bear Bells, there's some good stuff out there now.
I would say that the supplement company called Awesome Supplements, the brand's quite good, the name's dreadful, but they do vegan protein bars, and do you know what? They are delicious. I think I would eat those as a chocolate bar, even if it didn't have the protein content.
If you've grabbed a snack because the packaging looks healthy, it's me. Or if you find yourself like adding a superfood to your cart because it's all over social media, this is marketing at work, right? This is what we're talking about today. And what I want to talk about is not just marketing, but how food marketing sways our buying patterns and eating behaviors and what that means for us as consumers. This is the crux of what I've been really interested to talk about. So food marketing itself is not just about selling products. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry designed to shape what we eat, what we crave, and even how much we consume. And it's everywhere. It's in the grocery aisles, obviously, but it's also on advertising as we walk through the streets and in messages pushed through our social media feeds. But here's the thing. When we better understand these tactics, we can make more informed choices, think critically about the messages we're being fed, and take back more control of our decisions in a world where we're literally surrounded by all of this marketing. So my goal for most episodes, it's not just to throw more information at you, the listener, because wow, we get enough of that on a daily basis. The last thing we need is just more information, but it's to share more actionable tips and knowledge that can positively impact our buying and eating habits. I want to help bring this decision-making power back to us because we know our bodies best, but it's hard to remember that when we're bombarded by messaging that we may not know our bodies best. And this all ties into something called the commercial determinants of health. So we know about the social determinants of health, like economic and social conditions that influence our health status. It's healthcare access and education and social context and economic stability and all of those good public health things. The commercial determinants of health are the ways corporate interests influence public health, and they encapsulate marketing, product design and packaging, and lobbying. So here we're talking about marketing strategies pushed out by big food companies that promote products or behaviors detrimental to health. And I have to say, I had not heard the phrase commercial determinants of health before this episode. Had you?
I'm glad you said that. I hadn't heard of it, no. And as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, this is gross. There's like a whole sector on how to manipulate us in the way that we eat.
Absolutely. And we're just talking about a tiny snippet of it too. So from misleading labels to celebrity endorsements, food companies themselves invest a ton of money into shaping our behaviors. And those at risk, or those especially at risk because we're all at risk, are young people, which is even more concerning. We're going to talk about that today. Research shows that fast food ads actually rewire the developing brain, making kids and teens crave those foods even more. And there are so many avenues we could take when talking about this topic of misleading food marketing and the practices food manufacturers use to increase sales. But today we're just going to talk about some of them. So I want to start by saying we don't have the capacity in this episode, because limited time and stuff, to talk about food access. Let's just go into this topic knowing that not everyone has the same food access, and that is a massive influence on population and individual health, right? But we're not going to talk about that today. What I want to talk about today is how food packaging and marketing tricks us into eating more, who bears the biggest brunt of these marketing practices, and the impact of all of this on our eating behaviors, from obesity to overriding our hunger cues to more. We're not even going to get into social media today because it's its own thing.
We'll ignore the siren that's whirling whilst Kate says that. That's how alarming this episode is and how much we need to know about it.
yeah, let's add some urgency.
It's so cool, right? I think even the fact that you've just said that there are commercial determinants of health, I think instantly that is actually going to give people reassurance of like, right, I'm actually fighting against quite a lot in the choices that I'm making with my food, and that can be really empowering in itself. That's always my goal of social media, right? Where I call out all these stupid videos and stuff. I want people to be able to spot them on their own. So if we can make people aware that these things are there and they exist, I think that that's huge. So this episode is going to be powerful. I'm excited.
Yeah. Bingo, that is exactly what I'm going for. So this first section, how food packaging and traditional marketing influences us. Food marketing makes us walk into the grocery store with a short list of things we need and come out with a cart of new items we want to try. I mean, maybe not in this economy, but
Yeah,
at least, at least that used to be the case. And it's because good marketing is designed to do exactly that. It's designed to make us want products, but also to make us remember them and ultimately to make us buy them, obviously. The tactics companies use are more sophisticated than just throwing up an ad or like slapping a label on the box. They tap into psychology, habit formation, and even childhood nostalgia. So first, the packaging. The goal of a food or beverage company's labeling is twofold. They primarily want to meet the minimum standards required, right? They want to do all they can to overstate the benefits of a product. And this is where we see products capitalizing on consumer trends like plant-based. Like you're talking about that too, right? Like plant-based is a trend.
Yeah.
So that is something people are capitalizing on. I've literally seen like plant-based on a seasoning. And you're like, indeed, that's what I thought it would be. Yeah. It's a salt mix or something.
You hope it is.
Yeah, I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Or gut health or the importance of protein. The second thing they want to do is make you purchase that product that just spoke to you. So decoding this marketing literally looks like understanding a little bit of color psychology and a little bit about the buzzwords we're talking about. So the colors are pretty interesting to me. We subconsciously associate colors with specific traits. This is especially true when it comes to food. Marketers know this. They use it to influence our food choices and not just purchasing decisions, but also our portion sizes. So green and brown packaging. What do you think of? It's like healthy. Natural.
Yeah, I was going to say like earth, right? You know, like something.
Earthy. This is definitely good for me
yeah.
and the earth. Muted colors or minimalist designs or images of fresh ingredients make a product seem less artificial. And bright colors, cartoon mascots, Tony the Tiger, targeted at kids, making them more likely to recognize and want those products. And here is the kicker. Most consumers do not actually read the nutrition label. I think this is very true. We know this across the board. So
that doesn't
instead,
surprise me at all. Yeah.
we are relying on the packaging cues and the front of box claims to direct our eating behaviors. So if a cookie says high fiber or made with oatmeal, it feels like a healthier choice, but it could be massively high in sugar or ultra processed or super calorie dense. And I'm not saying those are bad things. There's a time and place for that, but it could lead you to overeating something you believe is healthy and therefore maybe more moderate in calories. I think part of the reason it took me so long to put this episode together is because there's so much research in this area. This is not an area where we're like, we don't really know. Oh, we know. We know, and we know so much, and the things we know are pretty wild. So let me share this pretty fascinating study with you from the Journal of Consumer Psychology. This professor of marketing and her research team went through a bunch of grocery stores and they conducted store audits showing that most potato chips, which are traditionally perceived as unhealthy, are in glossy packaging, but most crackers, often perceived as more healthy, are in matte packaging. So using this info, they performed tons of tests, and one of these tests was giving participants packages of potato chips, and the chips were all the same. Each packet had 113 calories of chips, but the packages differed in the glossiness. So some were more glossy, moderately glossy, or matte. And they asked all these participants to put 50 calories of chips in a bowl and then eat as much as they wanted. Participants with the matte packaging put more chips in the bowl and consumed more of the chips overall because they literally believed the matte packaging to be healthier, and this led them to believe that the portion size for 50 calories was larger. That's pretty wild, huh?
I can relate to that though completely, because I think I'm just thinking now to the potato chips. We call them crisps in the UK. It feels weird saying potato chips. Sorry, Kate. The crisps in the UK, I think of the packaging. And yeah, you do automatically feel like this feels like a more care as when we've gone into the product. Therefore, the product is maybe a little bit healthier compared to the options. Yeah, it makes sense.
And I'm sure that's true in some aspects, but not all of it, right? It's like you could put Ruffles. You have Ruffles, right?
No, I don't know. I know of them from online, but I've never had them before.
Oh, you don't have Ruffles?
No, we don't.
Okay, I thought that was like the potato chip. Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, shows how much I know.
Is it one of those those where like the same brand, but they call it a different name in different countries? Because isn't like Walker's
Maybe.
like Lay's in like Spain and in the rest of Europe?
I
might be completely wrong here, but yeah.
I mean, I know we have them in Mexico too. Rufles in Mexico.
Oh, nice. That sounds way better.
Rufles, yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, I agree if I'm going down that crisp aisle. The matte ones are like, oh yeah, these are like baked instead, or like are healthier. But I've literally seen Ruffles with the matte packaging in more like tan brown tones that say natural. And we're going to talk about that next. We're going to talk about these buzzwords because this is another area that's pretty easy for us to be influenced by these words without them meaning very much.
Do you find that really frustrating? And part of my brain is like, God, humans, we're so stupid. How do we fall for this? But we do. But
we do.
Yeah. Like we consistently keep falling for this stuff, even though it's really simple.
I mean, I think we can cut ourselves some slack because it's not just some random people being like, I wonder if they'd fall for it. Like, there's literally scientists.
Yeah, it's like departments. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, we're working against a lot. Maybe I'm just saying that to make myself feel better.
Yeah, maybe we are.
It could be that.
I'm like, God, I'm an idiot. Why is the packet look so nice? I just want to eat them all.
No, seriously. So that's true for the coloring. It's true for the design. And it's true for these buzzwords. So food companies often use health buzzwords or labels or claims to appeal to consumers' health and lifestyle and ethical and environmental goals. Michael, I feel like this is where you and I really get caught up in it too, right? Like it's common to see lifestyle and health claims like gluten-free or vegan or no sugar, but we also see more ethical claims like when we're talking about the free range or farm fresh or whatever. And a lot of these buzzwords are meant to grab our attention and they're meant to convince us that this product is better than it actually is, and a lot of them mean literally nothing. Here's a big one. Natural.
Yeah.
All natural. 100% natural. Natural is not a regulated term at all, but it does give the impression of health, right? It implies no artificial ingredients, but I've literally seen a package of Cheetos labeled as natural, so it really means nothing.
I love it when we go and pick out those Cheetos from the field every morning, you know?
Yeah, exactly. A snippet I read pulled from the FDA said that even high fructose corn syrup can be considered all natural.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
There's like truly no regulatory.
That's bad. That's really bad.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this would be fun to find some lawsuits about companies like being sued for using the term natural. There's too many. I was like, I couldn't even find a story. There's like Quaker Oats was sued for false advertising, saying their oats were 100% natural, but they contain pesticides. Ben & Jerry's, the good guys, sued for using all natural on ice cream. Multiple instances of Trader Joe's sued for using evaporated cane juice to signify natural sugars instead of added sugars. Like these are some companies that we really like, that I really like too, right? We're using natural as much as we can get away with it is kind of the thing.
Do you know what? I think it's like when I say with musicians, I love the music, never fall for the person, never idolize an individual because it could always go very wrong. When I see people get like artists tattooed on themselves, I'm like, oh, come on, there's probably something that will come out in a few years' time. I think it's the same for brands and companies, right? Like I'm always kind of approaching them with skepticism.
So this is the same with made with real fruit. That doesn't mean it could be fruit juice concentrate. And actually another instance of strawberry fruit roll-ups, they were once sued for containing literally 0 strawberries. Nothing having to do with strawberries even.
So bad.
And this is true for free range, farm fresh. Farm fresh means the food just wasn't frozen. Doesn't mean anything else. Whole food, there's no official definition, just kind of sounds good. Superfood, no scientific or regulatory meaning. Anything can be a superfood. And here's something interesting. The food labels that were found to influence people the most, especially those shopping with taste in mind, are all natural, which we just talked about, and made with whole grains. We know that all natural means nothing, and according to the Center for Science in Public Interest, made with whole grains can be slapped on a product that literally contains a pinch of whole. Like as long as there is a pinch of whole grains in there, it can be made with whole grains.
I'm getting like homeopathy vibes here, you know?
Yeah,
like
no,
1
exactly.
million parts water.
1 million.
So
Exactly. That's a great way to think of it.
There's a guy who works at the factory, just now and again, he just like tosses like this little drop into a vat. He's like, yep, whole grain.
Did you put the handful of whole grains in the vat? All natural is the same. It's so vague it can be put on basically anything. And these phrases sound good and they trick consumers into thinking a product's healthier than it actually is. And something I actually found pretty interesting is on the flip side, when people see labels like light or low fat, they assume that the food won't taste as good. So companies try to avoid these claims, even if they're true. Something could be light or lower calorie or low fat, and they instead tend to focus on adding positives like extra protein, higher in fiber, which makes the food seem healthier without turning people off like, oh, it's not going to taste as good.
Someone needs to have a word with Coca-Cola Light, because
Don't
like,
come
what
after
can
my
you use?
Coca-Cola Light.
I'm sorry, yeah. Kate's already had a bit of criticism for Coca-Cola this week. I don't want to add to the noise.
But that's true, right? Food marketing, this whole topic we're talking about, it's all about perception. It's not about healthfulness. It's not about actual content. It's about perception. And companies carefully choose words that make their products look better, whether or not that's accurate. Now, I have so much I want to talk to you. I'm going to go through this part really quickly. The FDA does regulate claims. So I'm not saying they don't regulate anything. They regulate health claims. So diets low in sodium may reduce the risk of high blood pressure. If your product says that, it's FDA regulated and required to review. They regulate structure and function claims. So calcium builds strong bones, things that describe what a nutrient does. And they regulate nutrient content claims. So low fat, high fiber, there are limits or thresholds something has to have.
I'm always quite interested by that bit. Sorry to interrupt you, Kate, because you see a lot of products that have high protein on them and you look at it and you're like, this is not high protein. So I think the thresholds might be quite low.
I don't know about high protein, but fat, fiber, trans fat, saturated fat, those are all ones I read. High protein might not be in there. And it's like low in sugar or something had to be less than 1 gram, or no sugar had to be like less than 1 gram per serving or whatever.
Yeah, because there was a yogurt I was going to buy the other day. I was like, high protein. I was like, oh, I could use with some of these to help kind of hit my protein goals. There was 4 grams of protein in the yogurt.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's like lower than low. Like, what's going on?
That's like, why would you even say the word protein on it? It just like happens to contain protein.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, may contain protein.
Here's the thing about this, like knowing the current political landscape in the US, I assume we're going in the direction of less regulation, even less regulation, and more power to like big food. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but salience is also a big part of food marketing. So how noticeable or memorable or attention grabbing a product is. Salience is the bright colors and the cartoon characters placed at eye level for kids. It's brand recognition through repeated exposures to TV ads and jingles, which funny enough, when we were just talking about Ruffles, I was like, Ruffles have ridges? You don't know Ruffles? Like the Ruffles have ridges is like their little jingle that they'd say over and over.
As soon as you said that, like I had like the Milky Bar Kids song in my head and all sorts.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, we remember them, right?
Yeah, and I learned about this kind of funny term called cliffing that refers, it's like a real brand marketing term. It refers to brands paying or outbidding each other for prime eye level placement on shelves in the grocery store. And then the competitors go in and take the space next to them. And they're all trying to push each other out of the best real estate and increase competition to pay more for that real estate, which is like not surprising, but also like funny that there's a term for it even.
It's like junk food turf wars. This is what it is.
Yes, this is exactly what it is. This is exactly what it is.
Yeah. That's wild.
And I feel like all of this leads to a bigger issue, that the ethics of all we're talking about, right? These tactics, yes, they're marketing tactics. They don't just affect individual choices. They have really real consequences for public health. I said this before, but kids and teens are especially vulnerable. Research shows that junk food ads activate reward pathways in young, still developing brains. And socially conscious customers, hey, I think that's us, Michael, are often misled by greenwashing, which is brands claiming to be more eco-friendly than they are, or health washing, which is focusing on a healthy aspect while ignoring the less ideal aspects of a nutrient profile of a food.
I mean, Goop.
Exactly.
You know, there's just so many big brands you can think of that come to mind.
And the last one is humane washing, which is giving the illusion that animals were treated more ethically than they actually were. And all of that is like so icky, and we know it exists, but we still fall for it because it's meant for us to fall for it, right? Mm-hmm. To me, it's a reminder, like we can be out here doing our best and trying really hard to be responsible consumers and still get tricked by misleading marketing. Mm-hmm. In my mind, what do we do about this? Like we're up against some big things here. And this is where, for me, I think education and awareness go a long way. So we can ignore front of package claims best we can. What you can do is you can always check the nutrition label and the ingredient list. If a food says high fiber or high protein, flip that thing around. Check out the label. 4 grams of protein is not high protein. right, Michael? Like your yogurt says high protein, flip it around.
I found one that was 15 grams. Now that
there
is
we
a high
go.
protein solid
there
yogurt.
You go.
Yeah.
We can look at serving sizes, especially if something is low calorie or high protein. It doesn't mean much if the portion is unrealistic. So I don't know about that yogurt you ate, but maybe the portion size or the calories per the portion size are so small that 4 grams is a more significant part of it. I don't know. And we can be skeptical of trendy buzzwords, especially when it's being used to describe an ultra processed food. So who is most impacted by this misleading food marketing? It's not just about selling a product. It's about shaping our habits, preferences, and cravings from a young age. And so the younger we are when we start seeing these messages, the more ingrained they become. About 50% of all advertising directed at children is for food and beverages. 50%, all the ads they see. And I think you can hear that and be like, well, that makes sense. But like toys, games, they're getting a lot of advertising. For 50% to be food is pretty wild. So that's obviously on purpose, with food companies recognizing the power of winning over lifelong customers. This is a quote from one of the studies I read that says, food marketing research shows that child-directed marketing cues have pronounced effects on food preference and consumption, but are most often placed on products with low nutritional quality. So not only do we know that child-directed marketing obviously has a huge impact on food preferences and consumption, but most of these ads target products like sugary cereals, snacks, fast food meals. This is a kind of a wide range of this finding, but it showed that children and teens are seeing from anywhere from 30 to 189 food marketing messages per week on social media. And obviously this differed based on how much time they spent on social media, but for the low end to be 30 is still pretty wild. And here's a brief quote from Ethan Pantzer, a professor of marketing, from a BBC article I read about the influence of social media on eating patterns. It says, with higher engagement and reach metrics for unhealthy foods, content producers may gradually shift their content to be unhealthier to stay competitive. And with more exposure to unhealthy foods, consumer perceptions of what is considered normal eating habits may skew to be unhealthier. That really hit me because it's talking about normalizing less healthful eating patterns because it's more popular.
Yeah, and I guess this is where like all the companies that produce these products kind of team up a little bit. Even though they're fighting for real estate within supermarkets, working together, they're kind of shifting the whole perception of what is normal and what is healthy.
And you and I kind of just talked about this morning, Michael. I think about like rage bait on Instagram. Right now, if you're in the Instagram space and you're trying to work with the algorithm to get exposure, you know that rage bait works the best. Right? It's controversial. It's like in your face. It's what gets most exposure. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. It's like leaning into the less ideal type of messaging to get more eyes on the message. It's obviously not the same, but it's a similar vein, I think. And I found this pretty horrifying breakdown of where food companies spend their billions and billions of advertising dollars on child-targeted ads. 51% of the advertising dollars go to sugary drinks, cereals, and snack foods. 40% go to fast food. If you're doing the math, we're at 91% so far.
Wow.
9% goes to other processed foods, and then less than 1% to fruits and vegetables.
It's quite hard to sell a banana though, isn't it, Byron?
That's yeah. So I was going to say, like, I obviously don't think the solution here is pushing ads for broccoli, but
See, I want a brand to really step up and try and sell broccoli via Instagram ads, right?
I mean, that would be cool. I think it'd be fun.
Can Big Broccoli reach out to us? I think we could give it a good go, Kate. Yeah.
Big Broccoli, we're here for you. But I don't think that's going to happen. Would be cool if it did. But I do want to share a bit of this fascinating study on how food packaging cues the perception of taste and the increased effort to obtain a snack. And this is pretty funny. Maybe it was funny for me, but whatever. The researcher tested this idea by giving elementary school kids 3 identical yogurt cereal fruit snacks. Each snack had a different label. So the first was a plain label. I don't really know what that meant, but second label was highlighting the health benefits. And this is for kids, so we already knew that one was going to suck. And the third label had cartoon characters on it. This was not about kids choosing which one. It's how they perceived the taste of the food. The result was that 88% of the kids said the one with the cartoon characters tasted the best.
Yeah,
it's all the
scary,
same snack.
Isn't it?
And not only that, they were willing to work harder to get it, and they literally had these kids squeeze hand grip strength testing to see how hard they would work for this treat. This proves a key point that marketing not only shapes our buying power and our consumption, but our perception. That's pretty wild, right? We're not even saying this makes you want to eat more. We're saying this makes you think this tastes better. Almost all the research I've shared here is from a US perspective. I'm sure it's different in the UK, but I wanted to share a little bit about Mexico because Mexico has very high rates of obesity, very high rates of poverty, but also some tighter regulations on food marketing, especially towards children, than some other countries that we think of. So this is a country very overrun by Coca-Cola, right? But certain regulations are still pretty strict in an attempt to fight this growing obesity rate in the country. Oaxaca is the state I live in Mexico, and it's the second poorest state in Mexico. And just a few years ago, Oaxaca banned the sale of junk food and sugary drinks to anyone under 18.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if that's actually enforced. I have not seen it enforced. I don't know how they're enforcing it really, but there are a few things that the country has done that have been more impactful, and they've done so following the footsteps of Chile, who's implemented some pretty stringent front of pack labeling regulations. So Mexico banned cartoon mascots on food products, but there's also restrictions on athletes or celebrities on any nutrient poor foods, and I think also on any games on the food boxes. So
I like that.
I made sure to observe this a little more when I went to the grocery store yesterday. If you walk down the cereal aisle, there's no toucan, what's his name? Fruit Loop Sam, whatever. There's none of those characters on the cereal boxes. There's no Chester Cheetah on Cheetos. There's no like games on the back of the cereal boxes. And you can't scan a QR code to get like digital rewards from foods either. And when this was implemented in Chile, mostly on beverages, consumption fell by 24%. Which I felt was like actually more impactful than I thought it would be.
Yeah, I really like that.
Do you know if any of this is going on in the UK?
No, I don't think that. They're actually, I think it's September 2025, is it? I might be a month or so out. They're implementing a massive like advertising ban around junk food within the UK. I know that after a certain time, you're not going to be allowed on television to advertise junk food. I think they're banning it entirely from social media actually soon, any junk food.
Oh, wow.
The kind of argument now is kind of what classifies something as junk food, because often perceptions of what some companies or people think is junk, I use air quotes as I say that, is different. But yeah, they're bringing quite a few things this year, which I don't think anything bad can come from banning junk food ads. Like no one's ever gone, oh thank God they're advertising Cocoa Pops on the television, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I'd be really intrigued actually to see what the stats say in terms of those things coming in.
Yeah, me too. And I know Mexico has done the same with the TV commercials. So between, I think it's like 2:30 and 7:30 p.m., there's no food marketing allowed directed towards children. And same with on weekends. I think it's like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah, I think it's till 9 p.m. in the evenings it's going to be on television here in the UK come September.
I wasn't able to find any literature showing the impacts though, because some of these regulations are a little newer. And I think knowing what we know, yes, it's great, but also I think it will shift towards companies marketing to appear more healthful. The things we already talked about, right? It's like, okay, if junk, air quote, junk food is bad, let's make the same food seem more healthful or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Like now with reduced sugar or whatever it looks like. Now, in my preparation for this episode, I saw a lot of slightly straw man arguments around how public health officials successfully banned like cigarette ads on TV in the 1970s because they recognize, okay, there's a direct link to health risks. So why can't we do that with food ads? Well, I mean, first off, lobbying and money, that's why. But also, for as much robust research as there is to show the impact of marketing on purchasing patterns and consumption, the health outcomes are far too complex to be able to say obesity rates are rising because of advertising. You know, like with the cigarette, we're seeing significant tie here between smoking and lung cancer.
Yeah, sure.
We can't say glossy packaging is the reason for increased metabolic disease, right? I'm not saying this doesn't mean more regulation is needed. It's just that this is far more complex than being able to say this ad is leading to this type of behavior. And there are a lot of claims that the food industry is self-regulating, like promising to limit junk food marketing to kids. Like, I promise, I swear, hand on heart.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
But studies obviously show that these efforts barely move the needle. And in reality, like we just talked about, companies are just going to find loopholes to push unhealthy products, maybe in different ways.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Now, something I want to be very clear on is that I don't think that this is some big evil scheme. I don't think that the CEOs of Nabisco and Kraft are like in an evil lair trying to destroy the health of the world. It's not a conspiracy or like a they're out to get you situation. And in such a charged climate as we have right now, I want to make that clear. That I don't think this is like a conspiracy. This is companies trying to make money.
Yeah.
And to do that, they make foods that are delicious and cheap and convenient.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're healthful foods, but many times they're less healthful foods with clever marketing that make them appear better for us.
Mm-hmm.
But we also know that obesity rates and associated chronic disease are on the rise, and access to more convenient and less nutritious foods play a role in that. And that's not just because of TV ads and food marketing. A lot of it has to do with food made more accessible and cheaper and more hyperpalatable. And when we underestimate how much of our habits in our food environment, like portion sizing and food packaging, affect what we eat, we may not only be fueling our bodies with more food than needed at times, but we may also feel more disconnected from our hunger and fullness cues. And this is one of the areas of this topic that to me has felt really important to talk about. I've kind of excitedly been waiting to share this one study that really shocked me. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to explain the study.
If anyone's not watching this on YouTube, Kate's face is so excited right now. It's great. I love it.
Okay, I'm going to share the study and the findings before I tell you the title, because the title tickled me, but also kind of gives it away a bit. So this... Yeah, I'm really excited to talk. This researcher, you should have heard, I read this yesterday and I was like, Kenny, listen to this. And everyone's going to have high expectations and really be let down in 1 second. This researcher, who is a clinical psychologist who does research at Columbia Business School, was curious if food labels could elicit a placebo type effect, which we kind of already saw in that hand grip test with the kids. But what she did is she made a French vanilla milkshake and split it into 2 batches. Half of it was labeled as a low-calorie drink called Sensi Shake, and it was advertised as 0 fat, 0 added sugar, and 140 calories. The other half was labeled as indulgence, with the label showing high amounts of sugar and fat and accounting for 620 calories. In reality, this is the same shake, right? And both had 300 calories per portion size. One was labeled at 140, so about half of that, and one was labeled at 620, so double that. The participants' ghrelin levels were measured before and after drinking their shakes, and those who drank indulgence had their ghrelin levels drop 3 times more than those who drank Sensi Shake.
I love that. That's wild.
Right? Okay, so back up. Ghrelin is our hunger hormone. In my undergrad nutrition studies class, my teacher said we always remember ghrelin because our tummy goes grrr. Like that's how I've remembered it since 2012.
Honestly, I'm going to remember it like that forever now as well. Thank you.
Ghrelin is what is the hormone that makes us feel hungry because our tummy goes grrr. So high levels of
we
ghrelin,
teach you the highbrow facts about fitness and nutrition on this podcast.
I mean, if it makes you remember. So
yeah.
High levels of ghrelin signal that we are hungry. And so when ghrelin levels drop, that's a signal to our brain that we are full. So this difference in ghrelin response was consistent with what would happen if the participants actually drank the low versus high calorie shakes, right?
That's wild.
Isn't it? Those who thought they drank the Sensi Shake, which was the 140 cal labeled shake, they were not satisfied. Their ghrelin levels didn't drop much. They were still hungry, thinking they consumed fewer calories, even though they drank double the amount of calories.
Wow.
And those who drank indulgence, their ghrelin levels dropped 3 times more.
Wow.
But they felt more full, as if they'd really had a 600 calorie shake.
Placebo is a bloomin' powerful thing.
Yeah, isn't that pretty wild? So this study is a bit dated. It's from 2011, but I found consistent findings with other studies similar with the placebo effect. This one was just like really beautifully thought out and named and stuff. And it's called Mind Over Milkshakes. Mindset, not just nutrients, determine ghrelin response. And I thought that was cute.
We love a good title of a study.
We love a good title, yeah.
It does get us excited. That is scary. It also frustrates me because I think if we could harbor all of these findings for something really good around nutrition, then that would be pretty cool. But we just know that people are going to use it for horrible, horrible things.
Stop dreaming so big, Michael. Stop being so sensible.
Sorry.
So we have a lot a lot of literature in this area showing us that consumers eat larger quantities of food when it's perceived as healthy. And herein lies this whole topic where I was like, okay, this whole podcast episode could be about this, but we're just going to give it a little mention. There's this whole topic of the marketing of guilt-free foods or foods marketed with a bunch of diet culture talk. Think about Halo Top. Surely you know of Halo Top, right?
I do, yeah.
The ice cream. Okay.
Yep. Luckily, I was lactose intolerant when it came out, so I couldn't even try it.
Well, it's not even good, but this is not about liking Halo Top. If you like Halo Top, that is fine. But I want to talk about the messaging on Halo Top. So they have a lot of like, eat this, guilt-free type messaging. On the lid, when you open up, it says, eat the whole pint. It says light. It says it's a protein source. It says save the bowl, eat the whole pint. So marketing like this can absolutely feed into our reliance on external cues rather than listening to our own actual hunger signals, right? Like we eat the whole pint because it tells us we can eat the whole pint guilt-free. That's not giving us an opportunity to say, do I actually want this whole pint? Or halfway through, am I full, right? So the pattern that often follows is using these healthy quote foods to justify indulgence later, like telling ourselves, well, you know, I ate something healthy now so I can have double the dessert later. And now all of a sudden we're just labeling food as good and bad and making all these transactional choices based on perceived healthiness, not how we actually want to feel or what we actually want to eat. That's where I was like, okay, we could talk about this for a whole episode, but I think it's pretty clear that that's an association that we often overlook. And here's how all of this influences our food choices. Food marketing does not just persuade us to buy certain products, it shapes how we feel about them. Panzer's research, who I quoted him earlier, so he suggests that once we understand why seeing images of burgers and chips makes us feel good, because we're literally biologically wired to respond well to these foods, it becomes easier to resist that influence. Mm-hmm. So this kind of awareness can help us become less susceptible to the cravings that come as a byproduct of seeing this advertising, right? So I turned a lot to research by Emma Boyland in this area, and she actually had a really great podcast on Sigma Nutrition that I listened to. She's a front runner in this area of research on the impact of food and beverage marketing on eating behavior. And her research shows again and again and again that we experience higher hunger cues after seeing advertisements. And this is what Panzer just said. This is where awareness is key. And this is why we're talking about this topic. So by understanding how food marketing and labels and environmental cues affect our eating behaviors, we can make more intentional choices. One important strategy is learning how to read between the lines of food packaging and social media claims. So knowing that, quote, healthy images and labels may not always reflect the true nutritional value of a product. But what do we do about it? I think we stay mindful about how we shop for groceries, how we consume social media, how we engage in eating behaviors. When we grocery shop, we can remain conscious of the food environment, sticking to our list and avoiding impulse buys that are marketed with emotional appeals. I'm not saying you can never buy that like cute branding new vegan thing, right? But
I'm still going to try it, Kate.
I know, and that's fine. But just be aware, like know why you're buying it, right? And on social media, we can pay attention to the influence of food-related content and remember that marketing plays a big role in shaping what we crave. Ad-libbing a little bit here, but I think about working with clients and how so often we perceive cravings as this completely out of control thing. We have no control over a craving. We have no ownership over a craving. We have no power over a craving except to indulge. But just learning why we crave something after we see a specific ad or we see a specific influencer show this, that's powerful. That gives us ownership over how we feel alone, right? We can continue to practice being mindful and intentional around how we eat, you know, better awareness of our hunger and fullness cues and tuning out the external prompts that maybe push us to eat more. But that's all harder said than done, and it requires practice. I've just talked about this so often with clients lately. One big thing that we overlook in our pursuit of being a better eater or a more normal eater, whatever you want to call it, is that it requires practice. Look how much we're up against. You can't say, I want to be better at honoring my fullness cues and just go do it. Because we got a lot of forces out here making that way harder to do, right? It's all easier said than done.
It frustrates me even more with the kind of trolling and messaging you see on social media who are like, fat people are lazy, quote. You know, when people are just like, oh, it's simple, just calories in, calories out. The more and more you learn about food, the way it impacts us, the environment, socioeconomic, no matter what it is, it's just a clear sign that someone is so uninformed about what people are up against in order to eat and live a healthy, sustainable life. Every time I learn about a topic even further, it pisses me off even more than previously. So yeah, that's a really, really cool topic though. That's awesome.
I don't expect that you sit down with your Ruffles And you're like, okay, glossy packaging. Check. This is trying to make me eat more. Okay, this says lower in fat, so it's trying to make me perceive that this is healthier. Now I can eat food. Maybe do that if you want. That'd be cool. But just kind of know that, right? And here's the thing. There is personal responsibility we can take. We're talking about it right now, but there's also a lot of external forces at play. And I cannot let this episode go without acknowledging that if we truly cared about making America healthy again or making the world healthier, we'd be talking about policy changes, and we'd be talking about regulations for big food companies, and we'd be talking about squashing some advertising and how we push certain foods and stuff. But that's not what we're doing, because the people who claim to make America healthy again or to claim to care more about health often don't. Like, that's what we'd be doing if we cared about making the global food system healthier.
It's performative health improvement, let's be honest. We could, and we probably will at some point, have a whole episode on this, Kate, I'm sure. But yeah, I think it's really powerful, isn't it, to know that we are up against so much, that people hopefully just be a little bit easier on themselves, not being so hard on themselves with what we're up against in order to eat a healthy and balanced diet. There's just so much going on behind the scenes that we are fighting against, like corporations and people that are so informed about how they can influence us. Yeah, I think this is really powerful. And also, I've learned that I need to try Ruffles or Ruffles. Ruffles. Okay, yeah, I need to try some of those.
I mean, I'm not actually saying they're that good. It's just like the brand. But here's the thing, like, I don't think this information means wave the white flag. There's nothing you can do.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Right. It means there are things we can do, and we're up against a lot. Now, I want to wrap this episode up, even though I could keep talking about more, but 2 things I want to put in the show notes if someone wants to learn more are the WHO's recommendations for how we combat some of this more misleading marketing, which is interesting to read through.
Not that leftist group, the World Health Organization, Kate.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. We're not even part of that anymore. It's a good read. It's short. And something that's so cool. This is based out of the UK. Have you heard of Bite Back 2030? I just learned about it.
No, I feel bad that I haven't heard this.
This is okay. So cool. I went down such a rabbit hole learning about Bite Back 2030. It is a youth-led initiative to combat the advertising pushed at kids.
Oh, cool.
And it's all youth-led, and it is so cool. And so they have really cool research they've conducted themselves and really cool initiatives and really cool proposals. And it's all based in the UK. And so some of it was like, oh, I don't really know the regulations there as much anyway. But I will link Bite Back 2030 in their platform in the show notes, because there's some kids, adolescents really, doing some really cool things. And I didn't even end up pulling a bunch of statistics from them, but they share so much. They have really good graphics too that show how freaking impactful the advertising dollars and the marketing and such are on youth. And it was just really cool. I was so impressed with what they were doing.
The kids are all right.
I will share those in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out.
I mean, some of them. And that's a wrap. So thank you for listening. I always love when we get feedback on these episodes, whether you agree or disagree, whether you recognize that there's more to talk about, or you're grateful to learn some of the info we shared today. We always love to hear questions, comments, concerns. And if you can, subscribe, do all the things. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and maybe if Mike can get around to it, TikTok.
Yeah, we're going to start getting more consistent on TikTok. But yeah, you've summarized
We've said
it
that before,
Kate.
Michael.
Yeah, I know, right? We'll keep lying to ourselves. No, honestly, that was solid. That's such a cool topic, Kate. So I'm definitely going to check out the resources that you mentioned there as well. So yeah, please subscribe, guys. Tell all your friends, and we will see you all again next time.
Thanks for listening.